Hey, it's Kiana, and I am back in therapy. Okay, so I know how that sounds when you say, I'm back in therapy. It immediately sounds like something is wrong. Nothing is wrong for the most part, but I just decided to go back because I figured there was still a lot of work that I needed to do. But at first, when I was in Pittsburgh, I just really needed to talk to someone. So I saw a therapist. As I was working with her and as I was identifying things that I needed to change, or she was recommending things to me that I admittedly at first didn't try to practice, I just realized that it could be something that I improved upon, sort of like working out. And we made a lot of progress. It's just one of those things where I felt like I had gotten on a bike with training wheels, and then by the time I was ready to leave Pittsburgh and I got that new job, I had taken the training wheels off and I was ready to start out on my own. And for the most part that was true. When I first got here, I applied a lot of the lessons and the practices that I learned from my old therapist back home, and it seemed like things were going okay, but it was almost like after facing the first set of hurdles, there were a whole new set of hurdles and trials and things that I needed to face that I wasn't quite prepared for yet. So being able to admit that and having a little bit of coaxing from my family and friends, I decided to start seeing a new therapist. Finding a new therapist, or finding a therapist to begin with, is like dating. You go on a date and you immediately click and it works out, or you go on a couple dates and things don't work out and it seems hopeless in the beginning. There are times where you're sort of like in a cycle, you're just seeing new therapists and finding new people and talking to new people and starting the whole process from square one, and you just kind of get exhausted. But luckily, I've been able to find one or two therapists that I've liked from being in Pittsburgh, and now from moving to Michigan, I found this therapist whom seems to be helpful. But it is admittedly difficult. Like I said, I lucked out finding the therapist that I've worked with. Things have gone well with them. I'm hoping good things come of working with this new therapist. I think one of the most important things to do when you're working with a new therapist is just to remember to be honest with yourself. So for me, I like working with someone who makes me feel like I'm having a conversation versus someone who sort of makes me feel like they're going through a checklist in their head and trying to diagnose me on the spot. I know that's what they're there to do. That's literally what they're trained to do. But I really like engaging more and kind of talking through things. So the therapists that I worked with, they've all mostly been really conversational. For my first meetings, they went through their the notes that they need to take to start the foundational groundwork on your care plan, and then after that, it's just working through the things that they identify as challenges. I kind of like having these action plans because, I mean, that's sort of how my brain works, right? I'm like a really logical, really like play it by the list type of person. So to have someone like lay out the action plan immediately and then like sort of let me run through the issues as conversationally as I'd like, it's nice. It helps me. I don't know how much it helps everyone else. I know everyone's style is different. Different things work for different people. But like I said, it's good to be honest with yourself and to know what works. And sometimes you do have to go through that trial and error purpose to figure out what works for you and what you don't like. And that's something eventually you'll probably be able to find out right off the bat. You can start to talk to a therapist and start talking about their style. Even just the way that they speak to you in the room, it just sort of can give you like a vibe. So I'd say learn what you want and what you need going into the relationship and go from there. Finding a new therapist really is a lot like dating. I know that I keep using that as an analogy, and at first I thought it was silly, but it seriously is. Like, I mean, you're trusting this person with your problems, essentially. I mean, I don't want to use the word problems, but you're trusting that person to listen to you and to recommend things that they think are best as far as treating you. It's that balance, right? Like, you have to trust them and they have to trust you. And that's something that I said to my therapist today. She was really cautious to the questions that she was asking me, which I appreciated. She mentioned that she knew that I would probably have been having those conversations, those initial conversations with my therapist back home, and if there was anything I didn't want to rehash with her, fine, we could work through it later when I was comfortable. That's something that was really important to me because that was one of my concerns when I came to Michigan, was I didn't want to have to start over with a new therapist, which is like dating. Like I said, it's like when you've been dating, you've been in a long-term relationship for a while, then you're single and you just don't want to start over again. You don't want to start from scratch. So it took me a little while to get to the point where I was comfortable enough to talk to someone new. I suppose one thing I can say is if you are thinking of seeing a therapist, you got to build up the confidence to want to engage with someone and to, I mean, first admit you need to talk to someone. I know there's a lot of stigma around it, and for me to come on here and say, hey, I'm back in therapy, like I said, would probably alarm some people. that's the way that we deal with our problems, right? We are social creatures, so it's helpful to talk to someone. So why not talk to someone who's literally gone to school to understand what's going on in the human brain? So yeah, I don't really understand the stigma behind it, but talking to people helps, and it takes a bit of setting your pride aside, but once you get past it and you sit in front of someone and you just have a bit of conversation, it's really not all that bad. So just whenever you're ready, I would recommend finding someone. Finding someone can be the tricky part. Sometimes it's good to find recommendations. What I usually do is I work with a psychology or a psychiatric group or a counseling group. In my experience, there are resources available where they can speak to you and recommend a therapist for you based on your identified areas that you need help with. As far as concerns about insurance go, I know that there are some people out there who don't have insurance. There are people out there who don't understand their insurance. You can try to find free counseling services. I wish I had more resources available to me. I don't know who exactly is watching this. So, I mean, I would recommend looking up free counseling services. But if you're just not sure about your insurance in general, just ask. I mean, I know it's sort of like an icky, like weird subject. Like you don't want to hear that your insurance is not accepted at one location or another. But it's better to hear that it's not accepted than to go there and for them to not tell you and you get a huge lump sum bill in the mail. When you start therapy, it's a little tough to really like break open and sort of pour things out. And I say just like do it at your own pace. Sometimes it feels like you're not really making much progress, but as long as you're there and you're spending time with your therapist, I think that's progress enough. Especially for me, who is someone who, like I said, took me a while to even admit I needed to see a new therapist. One last thing, if you are uncomfortable with the things that your therapist is telling you, or you just don't get a good vibe from them, or you don't think that you're making much progress, like admittedly don't think you're making much progress, don't be afraid to tell them that it's not working. They would prefer that you see someone who works for you than to spend your time and money working through sessions that aren't actually beneficial to you. I think that's all I have. So yeah, I would say just try it out. Bye, thanks for watching.